Yeah.
I thought for a minute I had some, I don't wear them, so.
We were getting used to new pants.
All right.
Because we put it's on the, right, it's on.
Don't know.
It's incredible how
Is that what you want? Okay, that's
fast
the
they're
real.
improving these things and how sophisticated they're getting. And you just, like, I compare with my phone now, I pair with my car, I compare with my iPod, I've got a pair with this. I mean, you name it, and all you do is open, close it,
on there again?
within 3 seconds, if you, boom, it picks up in pairs. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah, it's all Bluetooth, right?
Yeah, and
I noticed the cattails are starting.
5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago,
That's
first
good
got it,
stuff.
they wanted me to wear a box, I refused to accept it, the box got this big.
You almost can't kill those things.
You wore
I
it
know,
on your neck.
once they
Then
get
the-
going.
the
Yeah,
ones
once they get going.
that I
The only way you
still
do
have
is just
has a
absolutely
little
dry them
clip-on
out.
thing the size of a, like a,
That's not
smaller than a
usually
magnum,
around
that
I
big,
saw
like you flipped it on.
But the thing
And
is,
it helped you,
it's
you know,
before it,
communicate. I mean,
when I was,
could answer
before I
the
got
phone and
here,
all
I
that,
was
throw
like,
it.
that joy.
But now,
wow.
in a period
I
of
see
3
Jamie
years,
walking along the
that's all
road.
gone.
And then all of a sudden I said,
Use
you
your,
know, you guys had to figure out somebody to, do this together.
your phone.
But,
The VA doesn't cut any corners taking care of you, I will tell you that.
Well, they shouldn't either, should they? I just got a thing from the DA saying, you know what, we thank you for your service. Now we want to thank you again for everybody going and getting vaccinated.
Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, really?
Are we loud enough?
Yeah. I,
No. Well, I don't know if that's you or me.
3 times a week.
What'd you say?
No, it's you.
Study hub, and you go in there and you
Say
do a study
something.
hub, and they ask you, do you have any symptoms?
I can't hear you guys at all. I just hear like background noise.
Well, it is very noisy.
Check your oxygen level.
Can you hear us now?
I can't hear anything. It's like your guys are muted or there's like some mic in the back of the room. I got nothing.
It's crazy.
We're hearing you pretty good.
That's really, I think about my grandfather. This was, 300.
come to Oregon, it's closer.
And I think he cut a box.
Come to the lower 48.
Yeah.
Around and the things behind his ears were almost bigger than his ears were.
Not anymore.
No.
And you're right, I didn't volunteer, so.
You mind if I take a picture of him up here?
You got drafted?
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Eagle Project?
Mark, here's a question for you.
sir.
I was,
They-
Gene was telling me that
documented.
when,
Every email,
this is clearly efficient.
document, picture,
Because we don't
or
do
like
business with them.
physical
Okay.
objects like say,
Now, he
example
was
bag.
saying that one of the purposes behind
Everything needs to be.
this,
Accounted
is that
for
if
and
someone sends,
written down and.
to, you
I have
know,
an
instead of
entire,
emails,
report that I need to
whatever,
do.
you send Anthony
Very
emails, and it's not gonna come through.
Yeah.
West Dundee automatically sends it
Yeah,
to,
teaches you good project
general
management
delivery,
skills.
when there's a mistake in the email address.
Okay.
Now, he also says that our FOIAs go to general delivery. And which means that he and I both get these, I'm getting just crap. In the thing. And so I'm trying to figure out some way to reduce that. If you put something in the mail with the wrong address, it's gonna return to sender. Why the hell can't the same thing with email?
That's a fine question. I'll tell you, we should do, we need to get more organized. So start putting questions together that we can just send over there so that everybody's on their own.
Yeah, we.
You know what I mean?
I'd say the first question, where the hell are our computers?
Well, we're having a meeting with them on Wednesday.
Okay.
We approved.
We'll have a little chat.
Yeah. Tell them to get up to damn dime.
Yeah, well, there's more than that. It's more than that.
Yeah, more than a dime. in there.
Like exactly the nature of the agreement.
Yeah, you have a copy, right?
I know.
I'll give you one directly.
Okay, great.
No one could remember. Right. When we found him, that was Jeff actually.
Was it, or you just emailed to him?
I just, I think I have.
Okay.
You can have it. Because I don't have it as an, I have to scan it, which I could do. But
Tony, can you try talking to Joe?
I'm sorry, what you
Can
say?
you try talking to
Hey,
Joe?
Joe, where are you?
Right here, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Are you sitting out on, are you out on the glacier or are you sitting on your patio?
I am down by the dock today just because I need to find some place in the shade, so.
Oh, in the shade. Oh, well.
In the shade, and the deck is under construction, so you're still kind of soft there, Tony.
Well, there's quite a lot of talking going on. You're coming through.
Oh, is there? Okay.
You're coming through fine.
Oh, good. Yeah, so I can get out of the wind a little bit though. It's been like no wind at all today, and I sit down here and it starts getting windy out.
Well, you know, it's grab a latte and maybe a scone or something.
We can get you there.
Anything else to do?
No, we had a bear walk through the yard today.
I'm sorry, did you say a bear?
Bear, yeah.
Okay.
Big Alaskan brown bear came wandering through the yard, probably a couple of years old, so. The dogs barked at it, it went away.
Oh, that's fine. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jarvis, I was talking to Mark's son.
It's unfortunate.
Anyway, well, we're getting ready to rock and roll here, so.
Thank you. Boy, that's right. It's our right. It's not in-
They don't take it.
I mean, and not certainly not legal, but I mean, normally it's. Agreements that say, oh, responding to for them to say it's like 6 years. It really is.
For the blind leaders.
We'll have a little
I was a sample of fishing, you take that.
I don't think it's still- Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we even got one that was talking about,
Where does this general delivery come from? Is that something that's?
it's something that West ND generates. And sends it to us. It's good. When there's a mistake in the,
I said whoever's closest to what they think.
no, they send it to, Jen and it goes to.
How are you? Good. Tell me they're gonna be signed.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
okay.
and, he said you can all be right here. Unsupervised, I probably should go to a lot. And also, he's going to take all of the, generous delivery for you, because I'm really doing another 90% of the FOIA. And so, why can't we just have a FOIA delivery instead of? Yeah, just have like SH space FOIA.
That's a good idea. That's a fine idea.
Monday night, not bad.
Are we live?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, we are live. Act accordingly. I say behave accordingly. Oh,
No promises.
okay. It's now 7:30. Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call please. Mr. Dattley.
Here.
Mr. Farino.
Here.
Mr. Nimitz.
Here,
Mr. Harney.
Here.
Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Thorne.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
We have a quorum, we have a meeting. According to the governor's declaration, we are still allowed to do this remotely, and trustees are allowed to attend remotely. This evening, everyone is in place with the exception of trustee Nemec, who is attending remote. So that is it. The governor's proclamation runs until July 24th, the end of this week. We do not expect it to be renewed after the 24th. This may be one of the last ones that we can do on this format at the time being until the legislatures change things. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of July, that was then the 6th, 2021?
So
Parado second.
Moved by Thorne, seconded by Moreno to approve the minutes of July 6, 2021. Are there any corrections or additions? There being none, roll call please.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
Mr. Farino.
Aye.
Mr. Dattley.
Aye.
Okay, 6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, the motion so passes and then so approved. We have no video this evening, John?
No, I can't get this to come on, but he's there.
Okay,
But you have audio.
all right. You're looking good, Joe.
I thought you said you couldn't see me.
I got you fooled, don't I?
I picked a good background today too. You're missing out.
Yeah. It must be, the sun must have gone down. It's getting dark.
Yeah. Okay, John, you better get that working. I'm counting on you.
Okay, President's report, the Goober National Notarial Disaster Proclamation update. I think I mentioned that earlier. Governor signed it last month on the 25th of June. It expires the 24th of July. The next item is Windsor Drive. If you gentlemen note in your packets, we have a memorandum from Mr. Schuster in regards to this. Little background, Windsor Lane is on the map as a plotted road off of Deer Lane on the west side of the village, just south of Salem Court. It's not there. There's a house. Technically, Windsor Drive would be located between, I believe it's 235 and 230 Deer Lane. If you were looking, right now it's just 2 yards. There is no street there, but it was plotted in the subdivision to be a street. It has been abandoned. And it's come to our attention that there are the residents on the south side of it have applied to have a pool and a fence. Okay, the fence setback is, I believe, 15 feet from the property line, unless it's a right of way. And then it's 35 feet. And because there is a plotted right of way, on the map, they have to have their setback at 35 feet versus the 15 feet. So the question has come, what does the village intend to do with this abandoned platted stuff? Historically, we have sold a couple of them off to the adjoining neighbors because they were of no value to the village. There was no way a street was going to be stubbed in there. So that's where we kind of sit on this one. There's no houses on it, and the way, if you look at it on Google, the plotted section actually goes on the edge of somebody's driveway. So it's already some invasion of property there. But it is up to this board as to what we want to do about it. Do we want to retain that piece of property? Or do we want to abandon it and then put it up for sale to the adjoining residents to be split between them and added to their property?
Do we have any
Mr.
compelling
President?
reason not to make it available for them, those people to buy?
Do they want to buy it?
We don't know. They don't want the 35-foot setback.
Yeah,
They would like to, be able to have the shorter setback. And when we've done it in the past, the adjoining residents have purchased it.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
President,
No,
two quick questions. Is the church an adjoining property owner to it, or does it end before the church property?
there is a sliver of it that goes through the church property.
Okay. The other question I have, a statement I'd like to make is that if we do sell it, which I see no compelling reason not to, that there have been numerous conversations I've had with engineers through time, especially as water trustee or sewer trustee, where the question has gone, why did the village sell that and not keep an easement? So if we do sell it, are we able to keep a easement for utility purposes or for village purposes along there for whatever may come along in the future that we may not know?
Sure.
That would be my only concern. If we do sell it, we should
Stipulations on,
that we should keep it as a easement for the village for access and for possible future utilities, because
you want to keep the whole thing?
no, just an
Okay.
easement on it
Just
for
an easement,
just
okay.
an easement for access, whatever we may need, and for future utilities, because who knows, we may want to, run a water line to the church, or who knows what happens in the future, because some of these ones that were sold off, we had things that we wanted to put on there didn't even exist at the time. So
Okay.
Would that easement be similar to all the residents that are in the village now? The front of everybody's house has a,
This is between the houses.
no, I meant
yeah,
to ask for an easement on this property if the residents want to purchase it. Isn't that the same as current houses have 15 feet off the street?
No, he's talking about
No.
the utility easement. That would
Okay.
give us the right to run utilities through there.
Right.
Is there an easement there now?
There is not one now.
Okay.
Now, there are some situations where we do have easements between houses for
Right.
drainage or utilities, so it's not totally
Yeah.
out of the line.
Okay.
Yeah, you could have electrical lines, you could have gas, and it's still owned by the resident. It's still owned. They just
Right.
have to have an easement in case they want to go in and dig it.
No,
And if they do dig it up, they're responsible for, not the
Yeah.
resident, but the company would put it back to where it was.
Right, that's just-
Yeah, it's not
In fact,
unusual.
easement's important in that case. Would the church be interested in purchasing that property?
We'd have to, that's the decision. Once the board decides whether they want to keep it or sell it, then we have to determine who's all contiguous to it and who all gets an offer on this. So, yeah.
I would say, since we haven't done anything with it for all these years, we go ahead and move to sell it and keep a utility easement in there that we may need and move forward with that.
Okay.
Would it be beneficial to the church? I mean, would we want to give, and can you give the residents first right of refusal? I mean, that way they have the right, instead of, I hate to say, the church going in and saying, hey, we want it, and they may never do anything with it. And then the homeowners are stuck with a, 35-foot, setback versus a 15.
Now, I said that's a question we'll have to send to the attorney once we decide what we want to do
Okay.
with it. I said, it's a very small segment that goes to the church. And I'm not sure that, it would be of any benefit to them.
Yeah.
Other than that small sliver that's in their section now to finish off. But then the next question, if we decide to sell it, is how do you want to establish the price? Technically,
Steve,
you can set the price.
Mr. President,
Yes.
what did you do when you sold the one off of Hilltop? Was that Hilltop where you sold that one that?
We
bought it
sold
in the
one on
carry-
Hilltop. We sold one over on, not Saratoga, what's, what's the other parkway? Not Belmont, the far southern one,
Pimlico?
Pimlico. There we go. Thank you.
What did we do in
sold
those?
one off of Pimlico. On
Did we-
those, what we've done is obtained the services of an appraiser. Just so if anybody questions how we came up with the price, we've got a way to say, we used a licensed appraiser. I mean, otherwise we could just spin the wheel here and say anything from $1 to $1 million is what the board, Okay, if the board is of the determination that we shall sell the property, we shall utilize an appraiser to determine a price for the property. Could we have a motion to such effect?
Oh,
Okay,
George.
George made the motion, second.
Second.
By Harney, moved by Hoffman, seconded by Harney to approve the sale of Windsor Drive with the asking price to be derived with the consultation of a licensed appraiser, real estate appraiser. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
Do we have to abandon it too in the same motion or not?
Well, we're abandoning it if we're gonna put it up for sale, yeah.
All right, okay, I didn't know if it was implied or inferred, just want to make sure.
Yeah. No, they want to sell it, so that's an abandonment, and we want it appraised by a real estate appraiser. There being no further other comments or questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Pareno,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Diatley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion is so carries. I will inform the attorney and we will start the process as soon as possible. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, the next item we have is a resignation. Neil Bolding has submitted his resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, effective immediately. I would like a motion to accept such resignation with regret.
So moved.
Second, yeah.
Moved by Thorne, seconded by Diatley. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Diatley,
Aye.
Mr. Pareno,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so passes. We accept with regret the resignation of Neil Bolding from the P and Z, and we wish Neil and his family all the best with their future endeavors as they move on from the village of Sleepy Hollow.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
I'm
to
not
amend the
done.
agenda. Oh, I'm sorry.
I got a couple other items here that
Okay.
need to be carried
Notice them
on.
on the agenda, that's fine.
These are informational things that have come up. First off, sometime last week, all the trustees received an email that was received by the clerk that had been requested to be sent to the trustees, complaining on the fact that they had sent 3 requests for information to the village and had not received any information or response from the village. That email, I will tell you, was false. The individual who was involved in that had sent emails and had received responses. So I just wanted to let it be known that somebody was a little out of line with that email and their comments. So they had been addressed earlier. It was no fault of anyone within the village of ignoring them. So just a note on that. The other one I'm gonna pick up, tell you what, Anthony, I will move off if I see, okay, I'll pick up the other two under the engineer's report.
I'd just like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move up Nolan Mandelin's 13A segment to this time to give us a recap on his Eagle project.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Moreno, seconded by Diatley to amend the agenda to move old business item number 1 to the present time. Any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Prano,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Arnie,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so carries. We make the adjustment to the agenda. Mr. Nolan.
Good evening, everyone, again. So thank you again for letting me stand up here. I just want to give a quick update on the status of my Eagle project right now. Right now, it's still going on the 31st of July and the 7th of August. And at the moment, I have 23 individuals, both adults and youths, that have said that they will be there for the project. I'm hoping that that number will increase in the coming days. But that's the number I have right now, is 23. I just recently spoke with, last week, the police chief, Mr. Parma, about many do's, don'ts, what to do, what not to do. Reviewed the village laws concerning solicitation, and we also came to an agreement of what to do with the actual solicitation permits, of where I myself will submit one permit, and he will then add the remaining individuals that will be working on the project with me onto that one permit. And so that, as the board 2 weeks ago waived the fee, that'll be process that then goes down. The way that I'm going to be dealing with the permits is that for each group that I have, that again, a number of groups is going to be determined on how many volunteers I have on the day of. But each group will have at least, if the volunteers allow, one boy or volunteer in uniform. They will then have the solicitation card permit, because the permit is the little badge that you put on the uniform. They'll have the boy in uniform will have that solicitation permit on them, and they will be the ones that actually go up to the homeowner and deliver the bag with the flyer, which I have an example of right here. This is not exactly what it'll look like. The bag's different, but the flyer will be the same. But this is what will be delivered to the homeowner, and with the boy basically saying, "Hi, my name's so-and-so, I'm working for Nolan Mandelin's Eagle Project. We're looking for donations for Hearts of Hope out of Elgin, for donations for the homeless. Be exceptional if you're to donate something. All the information that he needs on the flyer. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day." You said they say something like that. So that's just rough outline of what is actually going to be given to the homeowners, and the maps that I'm routing out right now are, we have about 20 different sections just mapped out for each group throughout City Hollow. That number will either change. That number will probably go lower depending on the amount of volunteers I have, the amount of groups that I can actually create. It's, again, this project is all determined on the amount of people that actually show up the day of. So I believe that's all relevant information that I can give right now for that update. Carla, do you have anything from that meeting?
No, that was a good summary of it. Trustee Prainer was also in on the meeting with us. So we kind of went over everything, made sure to try and head off any landmines that could possibly be out there. We'll post something on the police department website as well about the project, so people are aware of it. And I suggest maybe we put some signs up by Village Hall here, letting people know that it's going to happen as well as they walk in. Maybe we can put something out by the collection box for the water bills, because people seem to use that quite a bit. So the more information we can get out there, the better off we'll be, and head off any potential issues.
Just another brief comment. I know Nolan was asking to use the Sabatino Park Pavilion for his group meeting there on the 31st of July, then again on the 7th of August. I had a conversation this evening with John Florence from the Service Club, and Service Club is actually going to volunteer to rent the pavilion and then have Nolan use that for his Eagle Scout project. So we'll just make sure that, you know, Wendy has that in the calendar. She actually has it in the calendar right now. We just have to change one thing on it, but that way there's a location spot for them, and you know, they can proceed accordingly. Hopefully there's no rain or snow, because you don't know what the weather's gonna be like.
Exactly. Hopefully,
Thank
fingers
you.
crossed.
Do you have anything else you want to share? You're all good?
I believe that that's
Okay,
everything.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And you guys can.
Okay,
You wanna get set, you can
back to the regular agenda.
Thank you.
Clerk's report.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Tony. Planning and zoning, no report. Attorney's report taken care of with the abandonment of Windsor Drive. The engineer's report. In your packet, there's the engineer's note on a request from ComEd. Be approved. We've got a permit with them. We have a motion to approve the ComEd permit.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Nemec, seconded by Harney to approve the ComEd application for permit. And their number is ComEd Work Order 1663929. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Hardy,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman. Aye. Mr. Pareno.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, under engineers report, there's a couple other things that, speaking of emails that seem to have gotten lost, the engineer called me late this afternoon, a little before 6, and said, hey, my update report doesn't seem to have been gotten in the agenda packet. So we must have lost an email from the engineers last week. There were 2 items that he had asked that we put on the agenda. Neither of them were action items. They're both informative. The first one is real informative, and that is we got another $20,000, guys. Last week, the engineer went to call KCOM about the process on our Sleepy Hollow Road program going forward. And they said, oh, would you guys like to save another 5%?
No.
Not really.
We don't want it.
Just money.
But as it was that day, if he could get my signature on a letter requesting additional funding, the feds would allow us to switch the funding from 75-25 to 80-20. So within about a half hour, I met the engineer down here.
Signed that really quick.
Signed that really quick. So now instead of our share being $90,000, it's going to be $70,000. So it gives us a couple of extra dollars to use elsewhere. So he's going to be going forward on that. Right now, with conversations with Kyle, the engineers are planning to repave Carroll Crest Drive, Christopher Court, and Winmore Court yet this fall. So, but now that we've got an extra 20,000, plus we've got almost 200,000, about 190 to $200,000 under the general fund in streets and highways, we could add another road project or two to the list yet this fall. So he'll be working on that and getting back to us on the August 2nd meeting.
Very good.
That was the rest of my report, which was really the engineer's update that he forwarded to me. So,
I just had a quick question.
sure.
Would I know Jeff's not here this evening, but would the expectation be that those courts would be done this calendar year yet?
They'll be done this fall. They will be done before the snow flies, because the asphalt plants will
Usually
close when it gets
October.
down to 32 degrees.
Yeah.
So,
Just in case people ask, about it, so thank you.
we will be adding some more to it. Exactly what, we don't know, but we said Jeff and Kyle will be looking at that in the next couple of days and getting it back with us. So that's it for the engineer's report. Director of Finance, Eugene.
You all were emailed the actual versus prior versus budget. Of note, other than the engineering and legal expenses that were high, everything else was basically one-time expenses, training for the police department, stuff like that. The other one that was kind of outstanding was operating maintenance supplies. Computers were purchased for Wendy and for the meeting room, and it pushed that up to like 58% of the budget. Other than that, everything pretty much is in line. We have the warrants for 7/19. We don't have that. It's in the amount of $137,937.05. So we would need a motion then to approve the warrants.
I move we approve the warrants of, for $137,937.05 for July 19th, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Morano, seconded by Thorne to approve the warrants of July 19th of $137,937.05. Any additions, deletions, comments, or questions? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
Mr. Moreno.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Dattley.
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
6 affirmative. Gentlemen, and that's all Eugene has. Thank you, Eugene. The next item is comments from the public. Yes, sir.
Just me. Evening, guys. My name's Kevin Erickson. I'm a recent new homeowner over on Hilltop Lane. And there's some village-owned property between Saratoga and Pimlico and Churchill Court and Hilltop Lane. In between the houses, there's about 10 or 11 houses from just a quick, online, aerial view that touch it, but it's not being maintained to village standards. It's kind of a dipped area, and the grass has grown.
It's a retention pond.
Is it? So that was one of my questions.
That's why it's not being cut.
Gotcha. And yeah, because my family contacted the village and they said they haven't been cutting it in years. And so yeah, that was my question. Basically, was there a plan to maintain it? Which it sounds like there's not. Because, and my second question was, protected use or retention pond. So, all right, because I've never seen it fill up with water. I'm, like I said, recent homeowner or originally purchased last year. So.
Hang around, we got water.
Stay tuned. Yeah, we'll see. And and that wouldn't be too bad, right? A little pond in the backyard. So,
I don't know. There's people that don't care for that.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 feet below most of the backyards. I think the water table, hopefully, I guess anyway. So, then kind of along those, lines. While I was here, I wanted to ask about the fate of Lions Park, because that's the public access to back there. The Lions Park that's on Churchill Court, I believe that's the name of it.
Saddle Club Park.
Saddle Club Park, I'm sorry. It's sponsored by the Lions, I think. Anyway, so is there, because that's being maintained, so that was my comparison to that, because I know that would be the access to get there.
That is Saddle Club Park. That was being maintained by the village. We are taking the playground equipment out of there.
Okay.
The sign, I believe, is the Rotary.
Okay.
They ain't one time. Yeah. Well, Lions Park is an actual park over in East Dundee.
Yeah,
So
for
that's
sure.
real.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess that answers the question. So appreciate it, guys.
Sure.
Sure.
You want to hang around for the rest of the evening?
Yeah. I'm going nowhere.
Okay. We can give you an application to join us.
This is my first meeting. Maybe I'll be back. We'll see.
I know, right?
All right, you heard him, guys. Behave yourselves. We want him to come back. Okay, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Trustee reports, roads and parks, Mr. Harney.
If you happen to be by Willow Lane today, you'll notice it is lined with heavy equipment and they're making progress. And along that order, I was asked to bring this up just for board clarification for the future, etc. Remember last time I talked to individuals who, I have a purchase order here for Willow Lane drainage project for over $6,000. I had a note from the office that they couldn't find where this was approved by a vote, the project. Well, we found it. Jeff actually found it, and it's clearly in the minutes of September 21st, 2020. So the project was approved, it was voted on. Now we have a purchase order for over $6,000. And the question came up among several of us, how many have to sign, who needs to sign, do we have a designated rep, etc. So Eugene, how do we?
Hey, Ed?
What was that, Joe?
This came up earlier on. We had discussion with Mark about some of these projects and the 2/3 approval by the board to put these out for no bid. And his interpretation is that the 2/3 vote by the board to approve a project with no bid did not need a signature at that time. The board's vote was the signature on for the purchase order.
I suspected this had been formally voted on.
It had been as a no bid contract for over the amount, and then at that time, Mark had said that the vote of the board, that on there it should just say approved by board, 2/3 vote, no bid, and the date, and that was what it should correctly be, was the determination at that meeting, if I recall correctly.
How we want to do it?
Sounds good, but it doesn't hurt to have the two signatures on it anyway. This is a formality.
Okay.
Right.
You know, but you could just write on here, approve.
For
You know.
approval, and then I'll put the date.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how we'll do it in the future then for everybody's. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Finance, George?
Well, I see those two items on there, and Eugene, when I'm looking at those, are they related to when I go through the ledgers every month, the ones that are delinquent? And some of them, we've had some pretty severe ones too, asking about going after them with the collection agency.
Part of it was, the police officers, and then just collections generally within the village. It's my understanding that we don't put people into collections, but we can and maybe should, or at least be able to use that as a threat. I know that in the village of Bensonville, they use a parking program or whatever, and part of that, they use a MSI, which is a different MSI than what we have, but they have a collections program where they do all the work. They just take a cut of it, and then we get whatever people pay.
No, I mean, I've gone through, as I look at the reports, I've seen some that are, $1,500, 18, some I think we put a lien on, haven't we? Or do we put a lien on?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe we put a lien on. And I've been a firm advocate over the past, and I think I've spoken about this at meetings in the past, that, I don't think we go after enough of our residents for violations as it is. And yet a lot of people want new change ordinances that are out there. But if you take a look around, I mean, you see pools up right now that may or may not have a permit, no fences when you're supposed to have a fence, like around specific pools and stuff like that, to get permits. We've sat here on planning and zoning over the last year or so with people that just blatantly ignored, the permitting process, and Barbara caught them and fined them. So I guess I figure, since we are strapped with revenue at times and we barely make it as it is, I mean, why don't we go after people that are in violation of a lot of these ordinances? And just like this one, if we have to use a collection agency, at least we're going to recoup some, even with the collection agency. So I'm all for that. I mean, I hate to say you're being hard, you know what, but it is what it is. And if you're not going to pay your water bill or whatever, if they would come to us and explain, you know, we've got a dire situation or something like that, I'm sure the village can work something out. I can understand that. There are reasons. But if it's, some of these are rental properties, I've gone in and looked, I've seen that a lot of them are rental properties. And with those, no sympathy at all. We go after them. You have to put a lien on the house, put a lien on the house.
You know, a lot of this is situations where you can't put a lien, like if you have a part-time officer who leaves before their term is up. You can't put a lien on their property because they don't own any property within the village. So the only thing you can do is send them to collections. So that's the type of situation they're talking about the collections for.
Okay. Yeah, and in our situation, it's a couple $1,000s. We're not talking about a couple $100. It's a couple $1,000s because we're seeking reimbursement for the training, uniforms, and things like that. And to me, it's an integrity issue. You know, when you're a police officer and you sign a contract saying that you're going to stay for a minimum of 2 years, then you violate that contract and then don't pay that money back. That's an integrity issue as a police officer. And I would have no trouble at all if we had a collections in place, sending a letter to that police department's head and saying, hey, just so you know, if this stuff doesn't get paid back, we're going to send it to collections. And to me, that's an integrity issue with your officer. Now, years ago, I mean, I know it was challenged a couple of times. I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but when we were in business and we had technicians that would leave with a full allotment of garments. I mean, you're talking at that time, it could be 11 and 11 or 21 and 21, depending what it was. That added up to several $100s. And what they would do is they would hold their pay. They would hold the pay up.
I'm sorry. I have delivery here. I don't know what it's for. Brad or Mark?
Who, please?
I don't know. It just said the village hall.
That was Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
This Mark.
Said the name says Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Well, thanks for dinner, Mark.
Wasn't me, honest to God. What are we telling this poor woman?
I'm sorry.
Paid for?
Yeah, I just need his signature.
Ed, you're signing stuff.
Here, John, will help you out.
John will help you.
If we signed for it, do we just need it? I
He's
think
running away.
you just wolf it down.
What pizza?
Your first meeting, you get free pizza.
Yeah.
Can you hold their paycheck? Well, the problem is, at the place I worked before, anything that was outstanding, they would either take out of the last paycheck or not pay until they returned it. In most of the situations that we were talking about at the staff meeting, these employees are long gone. So we don't have that option. But yeah, I absolutely think that should be a requirement before we give them the last paycheck. But in a lot of cases, the last paycheck's not going to cover the amount that we're talking about. And I think Mark would have to probably chime in on that too, because I don't know if it's legal anymore or not.
To garnish wages.
Yeah, as far as garnishing, there's no problem with that.
But what it sounds like to me is this is another tool in the box that can be used. It's not an expense to us. And if we need to give them a call, we've got somebody online. So it sounds like to me.
Okay, Mr. President?
Yes, Joe.
Oh, the only thing I say, just for clarification, I know you know this, and some of the new board members, is that two things is that Wendy does a really good job. She actually does work with a few people that have come in and said they can't pay for various reasons, and she has a list of those. There are several liens out there, and about 2 years ago, Mark advised the water department that we were doing it wrong, is that the water's billed to the house. So we should have no delinquent water or sewer bills. Bill would pass on to the next homeowner, which should get taken care of closing. So water and sewer would not be an issue.
As long as we can file a lien on property within the village, that's good.
Right, but Mark had advised the water department, gave a letter that if there's no lien, right, if a house were sold that there was not a lien on, that debt the debt stays with the house, so it goes to the next homeowner, which is something he said that should be taken care of at closing. So we should never be writing off those that's like we're used to, and Mark has advised the water department of that.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Sure.
So back to the question of a collection agency. Do we want to use one or don't we? Do we want Eugene to get a couple RFPs from a couple of agencies and see who we might want to go with?
I would say,
Let's
yes,
do that. Are there, what
better
do,
than nothing.
what do the other villages in around here do? I mean, do they use
Well, yeah,
collection agencies?
some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah.
I can say South Barrington did.
South Barrington
Over
did,
there, we-
Bensonville did.
Yeah.
So most of these, yeah, we don't pay, they get a part of whatever they collect.
Right.
So it's on them to get it, something, but if we can get something out of that $2,000, it's better than nothing,
Exactly.
so. So the action item is for Director of Finance to get a couple of proposals from some collection agencies and bring them back to the next meeting. Okay. All right, got that, Eugene? Okay. George, next one.
Credit card payment process for fees and permits. Is that something, we're currently doing that, aren't we?
No, we're not.
No?
So at this point, people can only pay with cash or check. So we don't accept online payments or any sort of payments by credit card. There's been several situations where people have had past due water bills and they wanted to put it on a credit card, probably because they were cash poor at that particular moment and they were getting cut off or whatever. But we could not offer them a credit card option. It's my understanding that the police side does use some credit card payment system or whatever, but we don't have any for the admin side. You know, we could use it for building permits or whatever. I was told that we were using like an e-pay or something like that at one point in the past, and a former finance director did not want to continue it or whatever because the accounting was too difficult. I don't understand that because we use GovPay or AllPaid in Bensonville, and the way the fee structure works is that the village gets exactly whatever that fee was, and any of the service fees or whatever are paid for by that individual. So if it was a $100 item that was due the village, we would get the $100, but they would have to pay $120, and the $20 service fee would go to the processing company.
Well, the state does that right now with any renewal, vehicle registration and all that. It's what I just did the one. It's $2.30 or something like that.
Yep.
And I know a lot of small businesses out there, even though they take American Express and other cards, you'll see an ancillary charge on the bottom of it where they actually charge you like a 1 or 2% fee. But I do know credit card fees are negotiable, and whether we use, if you went, I mean, it only makes sense. I can't see why we wouldn't take credit card for that. But then again, the consumer's got to be aware if we do, instead of the village absorbing the fee, whatever it be, let the consumer absorb it so they can write a check. They can do. Now, do we take debit cards or anything like that? Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
No, no electronics? No.
No electronic.
Wow. I think we definitely need to explore.
Yeah.
I mean, this brings us into the
I think so too. Into the
the
20th
computer
century.
age.
My understanding was part of what the e-pay was, is that it was more of a person-to-person kind of thing where they wanted you, or they wanted to have someone personally responsible for the payments or stuff like that. But with GovPay, they only work with municipalities or governmental agencies and stuff like that. So there would not be that personal guarantee or anything like that. And it's pretty easy to set up, and so.
I mean, if you look, there's a lot of companies today that you purchase off of, I mean, some that, and mostly smaller, that will charge you a fee. And a lot of, I believe, municipalities too, will charge you.
They're not forced to use that system.
No.
So if they incur a service fee or whatever, it's because they've chosen to use that service.
And as long as the service fee covers our costs or we don't have to pay the
We don't have to
service
pay
fee,
the
then,
service fee at all.
you know, I'd be in agreement with it. Absolutely.
Sure.
I just had a question. Wasn't that similar to, we were trying to do the water bills a few months ago? And because of the extra charges and things that that particular company wanted to impose on us, we decided we could not go that way. And if this situation of accepting credit cards in the building for service payments, then I can understand why someone would want to do that. But if we do any research to see there's a lot of extra charges, then that particular resident who wants to use the card may not want to do it anyway. So all I'm suggesting is maybe we go back and look at, I know Joe was involved with it, because we're gonna do it electronic water bill payments. And it was maybe, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe. Maybe go back and see what company,
It was 9 months ago.
was it, yeah, to see what, if that program gets reviewed again, if it made sense, then it would open up the opportunity for a resident at home to go online and pay their water bill. Now, I'm not suggesting the water bill is the only thing somebody would want to use a credit card for, but when you think as a resident, we talk about building permits, but also as a resident, the only thing I pay the village is my water bill. So, and there are, you know, we see every month, every meeting, you know, there's 10, 12 people who have requested building permits, which we see in the warrants. So there is a pool of residents out there, but because we already went through it and said it didn't make sense, I would just want us to go back and look at that one. Or if there's other ones that you're bringing up, Eugene, that maybe have a better program, we could look into that. But I would want to make it open again for that, that our water bills would be electronically paid, not just the convenience of somebody saying, I don't have the cash right now, I want to use a card.
Well, electronically, are we talking electronically like bank payment direct from, you know, set up like you do Comcast or something? Or are we talking credit card? I would say crawl before we walk, and let's look at credit card. I mean, credit card can't be that bad. I mean, we used to use them. I mean, from a business perspective, I'm very familiar with them, you know, pretty much across the board. And it's fairly easy to set up. And then you go, when you talk to an account rep or whatever, you can negotiate, you know, or hopefully negotiate. If they come in and say, well, there's going to be a 2.5% fee. Well, you just turn around. I've got a couple friends that have businesses, and they've gotten American Express down to like 1% or 1.5% because they are so small business friendly. I know we're not a small business, but I mean, between the half a dozen credit cards out there, I'm sure, you know, we could start with that instead of going electronic at that point, and then from there, you know, progress to electronic. Just give them one option to begin with. And I'm sure if they have the option of throwing a credit card out there, they're going to do it. Your two most popular are what, Visa and MasterCard, and maybe Discover or something like that. So
If it's not costing the village anything and the resident can see his option clearly.
Yep.
Why not do it?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we're kind of in the dark ages if we don't.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things with the program that you were talking about, there might have been some liability on the village's part if there was like a chargeback or something like that. If the credit card bounced or it was a stolen credit card or something like that, then that money would have, we would have to do an accounting for that. However, with like the GovPay, all that liability is on GovPay. You know, once we get our $100 or whatever, and if it's a bad credit card, it's on them. You don't have anything to worry about it being charged back. And so maybe where those fees were coming in, And I'm just thinking that there might have been something set up with MSI or something like that. So I'll look into finding out what was going on with that.
I also know that there was an issue of when the month ends and how the finance report would be skewed because the payments weren't brought in during that payment month, those days. So
We're already facing
that
that.
was, okay.
We're already facing that because we go on a 25-day cycle, and some months are more, or most months are more, so that date kind of gets shifted.
Doesn't accruals take care of that?
Well, the accrual takes care of that one part or whatever, but because of a 25-day billing cycle, you could end up with two mailings in a month.
You get one on the 1st, and then you get another one on the 26th.
Yeah.
So another item for Eugene to take a gander into is the credit card.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Eugene, when you get to that point, if you want me to come in and sit down with you or work with you, I'll be glad to.
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna take my 35 years of credit card experience and leave. You guys can hammer it out with those people. I've had enough of them. Okay, anything else, George?
I saw, well, just in the thing, are we going to talk about that? I saw that you were deferring on buying or purchasing the 2 vehicles. Was that the
That's
86,000?
the police.
That's police?
police.
Oh, that's coming up. Okay.
Okay, nothing else with you, George?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, George. Water and sewer, Joe.
I have nothing to add, Lance. Well, I should say one thing. After reading all these articles about the apartment collapse in Florida and how they've known about the deficiencies for so long, I just want to, point out that Steve and I, 20 some years ago, had the engineer before the engineer telling us that all those water mains needed to be replaced as soon as possible. And that was 20 some years ago. And just for clarification, that list that Jeff Steele provided was a list of the urgently needed repairs, not a wish list. Initially, he kind of gave me a wish list, which was about 3 times that amount. So as the finance committee looks at that, it's, we've spent several $100,000 repairing the remains that probably should have been replaced 20 years ago. So hopefully the residents will understand that, and we'll be able to figure a way to finance it and move forward on that. So that's all I had, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Joe? No questions, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, police and public safety, Mr. Diatley.
Thank you. 2 things you'll notice that the chief provided us with in our packet. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. I would like to make a motion that we authorize Chief to move Officer Chris, and I apologize for the pronunciation of his name, Safransky, from part-time to full-time status, effective August 1st, 2021, with a starting salary of $52,147.
Second, Moreno.
Moved by Diatley, seconded by Moreno to change the employment status for Officer Chris Safransky from part-time to full-time effective August 1st, 2021, the starting salary of $52,147. Any questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please. Mr. Moreno.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Diatley.
Aye.
Mr. Harney.
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz. Joe. Joe. We lost Joe.
Aye. No, and I've lost. Yeah, there we go. Aye. You got me now?
We got you. You voted aye.
Okay.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The motion so passes. Okay, next
Thank
item,
you.
Steve.
Yes, in your packet, you'll also notice the chief has provided us, he's gone through the vehicles we have and what we have extended warranties on. Our 2 newest vehicles, we do not have extended warranties on. And the chief has provided us with some quotes to look at there for the amount of, let's see, I have it here. Just a second. Yeah, $31.65 per unit. With that being said, the chief has also said that he even though it's in the budget for next year, it has not been approved. We did not actually approve the purchase of a vehicle, but it's in the budget. The budget was approved that he would forego requesting that we get a new vehicle next year. So we would just go with the extended warranties that would help us secure our fleet, and then we could forego, which would give us a quite substantial savings moving forward. So I would like to make a motion that we allow Chief to purchase 2 protection plans on the 2 newest vehicles for $31.65 per unit, and forego the purchase of a squad car for the next fiscal year.
I'll second it for discussion.
Moved by Diatley, seconded by Arnie, to authorize the purchase of 2 extended warranties with $3,165 per unit, for a total of $6,330.
Yep.
Comments, questions, discussion?
Is that negotiable?
As far as the warranty?
Yeah.
Or the purchase as well?
The what? As far as the 31.65, I mean, warranty. I mean, I know the answer.
Yeah,
They're
what I
totally
found,
negotiable. Yeah.
it is, and what I found is that way, depending on who you go to. When I was in South Barrington, we had gotten prices from the dealer that we dealt with all the time. And then I compared those to going directly through Ford, and then made a call to this friendly Ford, who's the one that I recommend we go with, and they were substantially cheaper.
Okay.
So yeah, it really does depend on who you get it from, and I don't know how, because when I talked to the original Ford dealer we dealt with, he kept telling me, well, there's no way you can get it for that price, because I can't get it for that price. And I said, well, no, I can tell you, I bought several of them for that price. So yeah, I can't get it. So there must be some incentive based on, maybe because the one that we're getting the better price from deals with more police fleet vehicles.
Okay.
Maybe they get better pricing from Ford. But yeah, they're generally substantially cheaper than most others.
Chief, is this, so it's effective on the mileage that's on the vehicle now?
It's effective from the date that the vehicle goes into service. That's
So-
the way these extended warranties. work.
Okay, so how many miles do the vehicles have on them now?
The what you see in there is the current miles.
Oh,
So
it
the
is.
ones that we're looking to get the warranties on is the 2020 unit, which has 19,000 to a little bit over 19,300 now. And then the 2021, which is by we had historically, the department's bought the 150,000 mile warranties. I think it's overkill, in my opinion. We're never going to keep a squad car to 150,000 miles. I highly doubt that we would make it near 125,000. So I think we're insulated even at that level. But to me, spending the extra $600 or $700 to buy it to 150,000 miles would be a waste of money.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know with my conversations with the chief, he's been looking at this since he came on board day one, and looking at ways we can make adjustments and save money. So I trust his research and know he's this was one of his things coming in. So
Yeah, that's one of the things I've talked about is I know what budget, I kind of inherited the budget. So I know what parameters I have to operate within. And I'm trying to kind of prioritize, things that have to be done. What we've talked a little bit about, our policies and procedures, how we need to get those updated, and there might be a cost associated. So I'm trying to see where I can kind of massage the budget a little bit to get the things done that the village needs to have done right now.
Yeah, a motion.
I was gonna say, we got a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did, that's
Motion,
right.
yes.
We had brought the motion up early, okay. I wake up here. All right, no further comments or questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Daly,
aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Thor,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes.
You
forgot about me.
That's right, Mr. Prater.
Aye.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we got 6
Now we got
affirmative votes.
I know, I'm sure.
No negative votes. You're hiding behind that water bottle. Okay, motion so passes. Chief, you can pick up the extended warranties. Okay. Anything else, Steve?
That is all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Public buildings and environment, Mr. Thorne.
I have no report.
Thank you, sir. Building and zoning, Mr. Moreno.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Old business. We've taken care of Mr. Madeline earlier. Just a note, on July 29th at 7:30, we're going to have a public hearing. And as soon after that public hearing, we will have a special meeting of the Board of Directors or the Board of Trustees to pass the appropriations ordinance. On the 29th, those of you in town, please show up, or, ooh, we can't do Zoom, that's the 29th.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, I
in
won't
town.
be here, so I won't be.
Okay. I
Could
got-
be available Zoom if you need it, but,
Well, that's what we're just talking about. We may not be able to do Zoom come the 29th because the governor's order goes to the 24th.
yeah.
Unless says he's not renewing.
Unless you're sick.
Or you're away on business.
And you
If you're
have
on
to
a-
apply. You have to send an application to the trustees and they have to approve it before it can happen. We got that process all set up.
Right. So if you're away on business or family health, wasn't that it, Steve? Weren't those the two reasons?
I think that's it. Those are about the only two we got. So I'm just to note that on the 29th, 7:30, public hearing and a meeting of the Board of Trustees for the appropriation ordinance. It should not take too long. Historically, this is not a big deal. Okay, any other old business come before the board? There are no old business to come before the board. Any new business to come before the board? There being no new business to come before the board?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everyone seconds.
Yeah, moved by Deanna, seconded by Thorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Dattley.
Aye.
Mr. Hardy.
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
So carries. We are adjourned. We'll see you on the 29th at
Thank you.
7:30.
Hey Steve, so yeah, you kind of had a heads up. I think we got kind of heard from the grapevine. Bill